Yo, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Over the past year, I've been torturing myself with some pretty hard achievements and trophies, but today we're going to be ranking them, which is a lot less stressful, thankfully. Basically, we have all the achievements and challenges I made videos on, as well as a couple extra gamer things that I did before I started YouTube, and we're going to put them on this here tier list and rank them based on how difficult I thought they were. As you can see, there are 27 games down here, none of which are touching grass. I'm still kind of working on that. And I'd love to hear your takes on where they should end up. I think the best part about tier list videos are the conversations surrounding them, and I'd genuinely love to hear about all your experiences unlocking these down below. But with that out of the way, let's get started with, the infamous Mile High Club from Call of Duty 4. Oh, please don't look at this gameplay. This is so bad. I look so bad at this game. So for those that don't know, the Mile High Club is when you do the birds and the bees in an airplane. But it's also the achievement in Call of Duty where you have to complete the Mile High Club airplane mission on the hardest difficulty where enemies kill you in 2 to 3 shots. And you have to do it in under a minute, which basically reprograms everything you know about Call of Duty Veteran, where you just kind of like stay in cover and slow and steadily kill enemies and go from cover to cover. You got to go fast. And I remember dying, I think in the first 10 seconds of this mission consistently because either I had a bad flashbang or the enemies just did not care and would just instantly shoot me, or there's just like one straggler as I'm running up the stairs. It is pretty brutal and requires like a lot of mechanical skill. But the only thing I think that would prevent me from putting it in a higher tier is the fact that you can get a lot of runs done really quickly. And if you have the skill, it shouldn't take that long. Like even though I had a lot of input lag when I did it on COD Remastered, I still got it done in under an hour, which is pretty crazy. So I don't think it can really fit into S or A tier with the longevity, but I think due to the fact that you do need some FPS skill, I'm willing to put it in B tier, and I'll probably leave it there for the time being. Okay, next up is Becomes the Master in Titanfall 2. Shit. Oh, this is awkward. Fuck me. So for this one, you have to complete the training course at the beginning of the game, and you also have to finish in under 33.6 seconds, which I usually do in a different context, but regardless, this one is kind of on the same level as the Mile High Club in my opinion. Basically, it's kind of a shorter achievement. It requires a lot of mechanical skill, especially with all the wall running and shooting on the move. But the one thing that kind of differentiates it for me is the frustration factor, because it's really, as an achievement hunter, it's all about the mental game sometimes. With Mile High Club, you just basically get gunned down after 10 seconds and you realize you're dead, whereas this one, you kind of maintain hope for all of it until about the very end, and not dying nearly as much, I think, goes a long way for me. So I think I have to put this at C tier, just due to the fact that I guess Mile High Club's just a bit more frustrating to me. Okay, what do we have next? Ooh, speaking of frustrating, we have Dead Space 2 Hard to the Core. That's so funny. No, bad. Really bad. Really bad. So basically, Hard to the Core is a difficulty mode in Dead Space 2 where you have to beat the game, where you can only save 3 times and no checkpoints. So you can only start at your most recent save throughout the entire game, and there are a lot of things that can kill you in Dead Space 2. I got slaughtered by enemies. I got slaughtered by the environment. I died so many times. Every single time, it's just losing hours of progress. It is not only frustrating, but also so brutal, especially for those that have actually seen me try to do Dead Space 2 near the end. It did not exactly go very well. So I have to put this pretty high, but I think I don't, even with all the struggles I had with Dead Space 2, I don't really consider it an S tier, just because some of the things later on are such a step above harder that I don't think I can reasonably put it there. Now, before we continue, I just wanted to get one thing out of the way. Most of these achievements sunned me, some hundreds of times over, and I'm not afraid to admit that. It does mean, however, that there's a lot of presents I need to get this upcoming Father's Day. And if you're still looking for something to get your realer achievement, Dad, then look no further than the sponsor of today's video, Ridge. Ridge is gonna make your gifting experience easy this year thanks to their huge Father's Day sale. One option you have is the Ridge Wallet, which is the perfect compact replacement to a bulky dad wallet. It can hold up to 12 different cards with extra room for cash, comes in over 30 different styles and has an optional AirTag attachment so that they never have to use their feeble old man eyes to look for their wallet again. Alternatively, there's also the Ridge key case. It securely holds up to 6 keys and keeps them organized so you don't have to fumble around for the one you need. Getting both of these together can get you up to 30% off your order, but if you shop using my link, ridge.com/snam, you can get an additional 40% off through June 15th. Ridge's 99-day full refund policy also means that you can test these gifts out risk-free and send them back if you don't love them. So if you want the perfect gift for your father, or yourself, I don't blame you, then check out ridge.com/snam in the description to get the best deal on all your items. Thank you again to Ridge for sponsoring, and now let's rank some achievements. What comes after that? Ooh, okay, so Resident Evil 2. Oh my god. Ah! No, bad. This is kind of like a similar level as one of these two, but do I put it in B or C? Basically, for Resident Evil 2, the achievement we're talking about is Hell of a Sheriff, where you have to survive 100 zombies in a gas station, which is really compact, and you slowly get more ammunition as you go on, but you are so likely to get overwhelmed during the entire thing that you end up dying over and over. I remember the first time I did it, it took me like on and off playing 3 days, but then the second time I did it, for whatever reason, it only took me an hour. So I'm not really sure where the variance kind of came from on that, but this is a pretty hard achievement. I think because it's about the same time as these two, but it doesn't take as many tries, similar to like Titanfall 2, where you're not gonna get that frustration nearly as often as you do in Mile High Club, so I'll probably put this at C for now. All right, after this is a challenge instead of an achievement. Basically, what It Takes Two is beating the entire game with 2 controllers by yourself and getting all the achievements for it. Problem. There's a bit of a problem. Is it hard? Absolutely. There are so many sections in this game where I felt as though it was nearly impossible, specifically like the anglerfish, as well as the disc section near the very end. I honestly didn't know I could do it going in, and during those sections, I genuinely didn't know if I could do it. I think for the most part, the game is pretty easy, but some of the sections that really do require 2 people do pose a pretty big challenge, and you really have to use your mind to kind of figure it out. I would consider this, honestly, on the same level as the Mile High Club. If you ever want to do It Takes Two yourself, it's pretty fun and it's super doable, but you can definitely expect some frustration in parts and possibly some sore lips or thumbs when you have to move the joystick with your mouth. It's not great. After that, we have Dead Rising, which is the 7-day survivor achievement. So what's the time now? I can barely fucking... So for this one, you basically have to survive 14 hours of real life time in the mall while your health is like constantly depleting, and you need to keep eating food the entire time. The only thing is, the only hard thing about this is getting through the 14 hours while remembering to eat the food. I don't think it requires any mechanical skill. I don't think this is necessarily hard anyway. I think the only thing that's really hard about this achievement is that you have to keep your console on for 14 hours and just remember to eat. So I think I'm gonna have to put this at the first D tier. The 14 hours definitely seem incredibly daunting, but for the most part, if you just set an alarm, you should be fine, thankfully. Wait, ooh, speaking of daunting, next up we have Hollow Knight. So for this one's gonna be for the Steel Heart achievement, which is permadeath 100%. We have a couple extra Hollow Knight achievements coming later on, but that's what this one's gonna be. This was pretty brutal for me, especially since, as everyone likes to remind me, I died to Fluke Marm. Thank you guys for reminding me, you're the best. But yeah, this one was just completely stressful. Since you have to 100%, you have to spend so much time gathering everything, and if you die near the end, you lose hours upon hours of progress. The entire time I was stressed out, especially during the final boss fight where I literally almost died and choked the run. But yeah, this one is pretty brutal. You really have to be super familiar with the game in order to like be able to accomplish this successfully. And for that reason, I think I have to put it next to the other semi-permadeath achievement in Dead Space 2 in A tier for sure. Okay, so with Hollow Knight up there, next up is Hades. Okay. Oh my... Wait, that's a lot more people than normal. So I don't think Hades was that hard achievement-wise, personally. The hardest thing you had to do was complete a 16 heat run, which is basically just adding on a couple modifiers to your run to make it a bit harder. But even a 16 heat run, honestly, in the grand scheme of things and with how hard Hades can be, is not that bad. If it was a 32 heat run, or God forbid a 64 heat run where you have to turn on all the modifiers, things would definitely be different. But I think I have to put Hades also in D tier. The achievements for that are mainly just kind of grindy, not super hard. Oh, hold on. Speaking of difficult though, next up we have the Evil Within Akumu mode. Well, it's not necessarily just, oh my, Akumu mode, for those that don't know, means that you die instantly from taking any sort of hit, just like that one dude from SpongeBob with the glass legs and paper skin. That's basically you in this mode. This is pretty brutal. Thank God you have checkpoints, but other than that, you will die over and over and over again. I think for me, it took almost 400 deaths. To be fair, kind of clowning around like I usually do, but at the same time, like, oh, there were so many difficult parts like chapter 11 or chapter 6 that just held me up for so long. And I feel like I gotta put this in A tier too. Thankfully, you can just keep progressing. It's not like you have to restart all over again, but the difficulty, it really gets you after a little bit. And now we go from something really hard to something really tedious, and that's the 70 gold medals you have to get in Red Dead 2 story missions.
You all right? Oh, I'll live.
You'll live, you say? Not on my watch, idiot. Oh no, it fails the mission. To get a gold medal, you have to complete all the optional objectives of a story mission in one playthrough. You can't replay and get one objective each time. It has to be all in one. And it is so frustratingly annoying. I don't think any of the optional objectives are necessarily too hard, especially if you just end up picking and choosing the easier missions, because there's 104 missions, you'll need 70 medals. But man, when you miss an optional objective and you just kind of have to take the silver medal and just replay, it just gets so tedious. I can't say it's difficult though, so I'm gonna have to put it in C tier. But if I took just like the amount of just absolute boredom that I had going for this and the amount of times I just failed because of one just mistake, actually, that's kind of the reasoning I did between Titanfall 2 and Call of Duty. I might put this in B tier instead. Yeah, I think Red Dead 2 is good in B tier, and I also think that Ethan Must Die from RE7 should also be in B tier. That was a little, almost not. I kind of relate it to the Mile High Club, where it's a lot of trial and error, but Ethan Must Die, you know, where Ethan dies a lot. Basically, it's just kind of like you try to figure everything out. It's pretty short. I think it only took me like 6 hours to do. It's just pretty brutal with how it just murders you when you don't have the knowledge, but when you do have the knowledge of how to get through, it just feels really good to get to the ends. And I don't think it has the longevity of any of the A tier things to be ranked any higher than this. Okay, after Ethan Must Die, we have Portal 2. Hey, let's go! The feet did it. Okay, so Portal 2, that's another challenge one. Basically, what I did in this game is unlock every single co-op achievement by myself with 2 controllers, similar to It Takes Two, except Portal 2, way easier to do by yourself. I'm really not sure why. Most of these puzzles don't really require 2 bots moving at the same time. You can get all the co-op achievements pretty easily. The worst one is completing Course 4 without dying, but even that's like not too bad so long as you play through it the first time and know what to do. I'd say that there are a couple hard parts, definitely some harder parts than there were in Dead Rising and Hades, so I think I'm gonna have to put this in a C tier. Oh, now we're back to the tediousness. Okay, next up is getting all the blue ribbon challenges in Bioshock 2. Basically, Bioshock 2 has a DLC, which is like a wave-based mode, and you get a challenge during each wave that you have to complete during that wave, or you fail, and you have to replay the entire arena again up until that wave to get another try at it. There are 15 waves on each one. This is just incredibly tedious and pretty hard. I would honestly put this at an A tier just because the challenges are difficult. It's really frustrating. It's like Red Dead 2, but on steroids. It's not fun at all. I would recommend almost all these achievements, but Bioshock getting the blue ribbons, that's one I genuinely would just tell you to stay away from. It really is not worth it. You know what I would recommend though? Doing all the campaigns on solo experts in the original Left 4 Dead. No! Not like this! Listen, I got absolutely screwed by the director. I got trolled by my AI teammates, but this one still very, very fun, but also very, very difficult. I think the main thing with this is you have to be pretty good at the game, and also RNG has to be slightly favoring you, especially when it comes to the AI actually deciding to pick you up or not. This is definitely a lot easier when you're playing with friends, but I'm looking at it through the lens of playing by myself, and oh gosh, I think it's definitely harder than everything in B tier, but I don't think it's on that same A tier level where it's really, really difficult. So I think I'm gonna have to put it at the top of B tier, and that's where I'm sticking. And then next up, we have the Callisto Protocol. I have yet to have like any issues with this game, and from like a So for this one, I went for every single achievement in one playthrough, and let me tell you, it is really, really easy. This game was not super difficult. The dodging mechanic was really, really weird. All you really had to do was collect a bunch of stuff and beat the game on the hardest difficulty, which really wasn't that bad. It just kind of took a couple tries with everything. I genuinely don't think that I think this might be one of the easiest, if not the easiest thing I've done on the channel thus far. And for that reason, obviously, gotta plop it into good old D tier here. And you know what else is really easy? The Dead Space remake. What am I getting? Wait, what the f am I getting hit by? Which is crazy because its hardest achievement is permadeath as well, which should theoretically be harder than Dead Space 2, but it wasn't. It was actually super simple. So much so that after one playthrough of practice, I got it on my first try. I'm not exactly sure why that's the case. Maybe it's because the enemies are kind of slower than Dead Space 2, or, you know, I just kind of was familiar with the first game after playing it all those years ago. But man, it was really stressful all the way through, but once I finished it, incredibly underwhelming difficulty-wise. But now we go to something again that's pretty hard, and that would be Call of Duty World at War on Veteran. I can't move! I can't move! Whose idea was the grenades, by the way? It's on site whenever I meet that guy, because that is, the grenade spam is so utterly ridiculous. The amount of just infinitely spawning enemies, it's long. There's the one checkpoint in Heart of the Reich where I died almost 100 times to a singular checkpoint. It's just, oh my god, so many bad memories. And honestly, in my opinion, just as bad as a Kumu mode, even though you don't die immediately. That's how ridiculous this is. I gotta put it in A tier. But then we go down to another shooter, which is Gears of War. Oh, not good. Wait, really bad. Shit. Gears of War, I don't think it was too hard on its hardest difficulty. Like, yeah, I definitely died in the triple digits, I won't lie. I am just a thrower and a loser and very bad at video games. But at the same time, it really didn't require all that much of me. The hardest difficulty, at least in the first game, wasn't too crazy. General ROM wasn't nearly as hard as I thought he was necessarily gonna be. And although, obviously, like, playing through the campaign takes 12 hours, which is way longer than your Mile High Club, or your Ethan Must Die, I think the overall difficulty was so all right that I would probably put it at the top of C tier rather than put it in B tier. I think it doesn't require you to be like crazy good at the game. You just kind of have to be okay at shooters. You don't really need to have the same sort of mastery you do for like your Left 4 Dead or your Ethan Must Die or your Call of Duty and such. Now, all of you might be wondering, Snam, why is S tier still blank? Is it because you're terrible at video games? Well, for one, yes. But for another, it's because everything, and I mean everything, in A tier does not come anywhere close to the level of insurmountable difficulty I faced doing Left 4 Dead 2 solo expert realism. Be good? Or obviously not good.
I'm down!
I had to carve out its own spot because I genuinely, at points during this playthrough, thought it was impossible. That's how bad it was. The director was cruel. You had to play perfectly or you died. And even when you did play perfectly, it only gave you a chance to win. And RNG would rob it every other time due to just the amount of sheer bullshit that the game would throw at you. I promise you, I'm not overhyping this. I recommend you try it yourself, and then you will see just how absolutely ridiculous doing every base campaign on solo expert realism can possibly get. But after that, we move on to Gears 2, which is substantially easier. Where did he come from? I think Gears 2 overall is definitely harder than Gears 1, but it sort of falls under the same category where you don't have to be a master at the game. All you really have to do to beat it on the hardest difficulty is be patient and be like semi-good at third-person shooters. And it becomes even easier when you play co-op with a friend, which I don't have, but you might. So I think I'm gonna have to put this above Gears of War 1, but still very much in C tier. And with Gears of War 2 place, that's all the games that I've done videos on. But we still have to buff up the top categories a little bit so I seem like less of a loser. So we're gonna start talking about the gaming achievements that I did before YouTube too. Starting with Metal Gear Solid 5 and its achievement for completing all the optional objectives in every single mission, which is like the Red Dead 2 achievement, which I said took forever, on crack. It's absurd. The difficulty of the optional objectives is way higher. It took me so many more tries for each of them. It took double the time, which was already ridiculous enough for Red Dead 2. And oh my gosh, it genuinely took me an entire summer to get all the achievements in this game. It was worth it. This game is phenomenal, but man, getting all those optional objectives and the S ranks to boot for each of these story missions was just absolutely ridiculous and worthy of A tier. And from one heavy hitter to another, we move on to Celeste for getting all the A sides, B sides, and C sides. And those that don't know about the B sides and C sides, who might not be getting flashbacks like me and some others right now, they are some of the toughest platforming challenges you can get in a non-Kaizo video game. I remember spending hours in the mansion on B-sides, just continuously dying to spikes and goop and ghosts. And then the seaside volcano, where it teaches you an entirely new tech at the very end of Seasides, is some of the most surreal thing ever. And it still took me forever to learn, even though I had hours upon hours in the game. And for that, I also have to put Celeste in A tier. It's an incredible accomplishment if you beat the C-sides and B-sides. They are brutal platforming. So for those that don't know what the joystick is, this is actually the Evil Within 2 You Asked for It Again achievement. It's not Akumu mode this time, but it's actually classic mode, which is like the Dead Space 2 achievement where you only have 3 saves, except this time you have 7, but the game is like also substantially harder than Dead Space 2. That being said, I didn't exactly struggle too much with this one, thankfully. 7 saves was more than enough to not get me as tilted as Dead Space 2 did, but it's easily at the top of B tier for how difficult it can possibly be. And you know what else sounded hard but really wasn't in the grand scheme of things? I'd have to say Halo Infinite Lasso. Lasso, for those that don't know, it's the hardest difficulty and you have a whole bunch of modifiers on top of that, making the game even more difficult. But usually in the Halo games, there's something called an Iron Skull, which restarts you at the beginning of each level when you die. Whereas on Infinite, because it's open world and there aren't really levels, you didn't really have to worry about that. And you could also pick up this giant tank cannon that could blow everything away, even on the highest difficulty, almost immediately after you start. So with that, I would also have to put it in B tier. It's still pretty difficult, but nowhere near as bad as anything in A tier, in my opinion. But with those done, all we have left down here are some heavy hitters, starting with Pantheon 5 in Hollow Knight. Pantheon 5 is where you have to fight all 53 of Hollow Knight's bosses back to back without dying, or you restart the entire thing. It is brutal. It has ruined many people's 100%, and it requires so much knowledge of boss patterns and absolute mastery of mechanics that I cannot give it anything less than the top of A tier. Or, since this is my list, a little behind Steel Heart, which is a controversial opinion, I know. Almost everyone I've talked to at this point has said Embrace the Void in Pantheon 5 is way harder than Permadeath 100%. But there's a reason I think this way, and that is because of the third and final Hollow Knight challenge that I completed. That is the only other thing that I would ever put in S tier, and that is to get Radiance on every single boss in the game. So for those that don't know what Radiant is, that's fair. But basically, when you go to the statue room in Godhome, you can fight every single boss individually on 3 difficulties. You can fight them normally, you can fight them on Attuned, which gives them double damage, or you can fight them on Radiant, where if you take a single hit during the entire fight, you lose. And I somehow managed to beat every single boss individually, not in a row, that would be crazy, without taking a hit. This took me, I am not kidding you, 2 months of on and off play, of playing almost every day, or at least trying for half an hour to an hour to get. It is absolutely insane. You have to be perfect every single time. And even then, one slip up is all it takes, especially on Radiance, which I think out of the 2 months that I did trying to Radiant every boss, took me 1 month in its entirety for one boss. It is absurd, it is ridiculous, and it's still, honestly, I would even say an even prouder accomplishment than solo expert realism in Left 4 Dead 2. I honestly, the day I beat Radiance, I popped off so hard and it was glorious. I don't think I've ever had that kind of a dopamine hit from an achievement or challenge since then. And I'm still chasing that high. But now we only have one achievement to go, and it's no slouch either. It is the one-shot achievement from Alien Isolation, where you have to complete the entire game without dying. Permadeath automatically basically aids here, especially when you have an alien or facehuggers that follow you around and kill you instantaneously, setting you back 5 or 6 hours of progress. It is brutal. It is no fun. At least on easy, it's not too bad because the AI is more like a Patrick Star than a Sherlock Holmes. But for those that know what I'm trying to do in Alien, you all know the real ranking, and hopefully I can actually finish an Alien run soon for you all to enjoy. And yeah, that's basically where I'd put all the achievements that I have in terms of difficulty. Other than maybe putting Alien in A, just due to the fact that I should probably rank it with the one-shot achievement I have and not the sadistic challenge that I've been suffering through for the past 4 months. But regardless, this seems pretty accurate. So with the time I have left, I just want to say thank you all so much for watching me achievement hunt this year. It genuinely means the world to me that I can make videos on something I'm so passionate about, and I don't think I could have gotten half the hard achievements on this list without all your support and cheers, so thank you. There is one thing I would change though, and that's that S tier is still looking a little barren. That's why today I'm making a declaration. Wolfenstein 2, Super Meat Boy, Devil May Cry 5, I am coming for you this year, and I am going to win. And you should all subscribe and like the video so that you can see when those come out. Okay, bye.